Welcome, everybody. My name is Teresa Novakovich. I'm a health educator with South Central Alaska Area Health Education Center, a department of the Alaska Primary Care Association. And this is our fourth in our brown bag series on professionalism in healthcare. We're very excited today to have my colleague Sevilla Love here to be our own coach, our personal coaching session today. In dealing with what's going on in our lives and self-care and dealing with the situation that we're in with the current pandemic. If this is your first time attending, welcome. We're glad you're here. And if you're returning from other sessions, thank you for coming back. We're glad you could join us today. I have the schedule up on your screen of the upcoming trainings. Today we are on your personal COVID coaching session with Sevilla Love. Coming up on Friday, we're going to have cultural competency with Kayla Franklin, one of the other health educators with South Central Alaska AHEC. So look forward to that. So just to get us going, we're going to take kind of a mental temperature of how we're doing. I'm going to put a poll up here, and I just ask you to honestly share with us, and this is anonymous, how you were doing today. So go ahead and check one of those. Let us know how you are feeling today, how things are going in your life. Okay, I'll leave that poll open for about another 20 seconds. If you haven't voted, please do. All right, I'm going to go ahead and close that poll and share the results. So it looks like 45% of us are doing good. That's good. 10% excellent, 29% okay, 16% struggling, and nobody is doing terrible. So that's good news. So I'm very excited, as I mentioned, to have Sevilla Love sharing with us today. I'm going to go ahead and turn the screen over to her. Hold on just 1 second. And let her introduce her.
Okay, and then I want to make sure I'm sharing my screen.
Just 1 second.
Okay, there we go. Let me see what you guys see. Okay, let me change that up. Okay. I think we got that. And you can hear me okay?
We can hear you, we can see it, looks great. Thank you.
Perfect. Okay, wonderful. Well, welcome everyone. So glad you were here. Thank you for taking the time out of your day to spend with us and come to learn, maybe look at things in a little bit different way in terms of how we're coping and maybe stepping up our skill set to thrive a little bit more often during this time that things are so different for everyone. My name is Sevilla. I love, and I am an LCSW. I work for the Alaska Primary Care Association. I work in the Technical and Training Assistance Department. May have met many of you, do a lot of traveling around the state, and not right now, of course, but basically what I do is I help train people to communicate more effectively and for teams to work together more effectively. That's really the bottom line. And so one of the things to be able to do that is we have to be able to always start with ourselves first. Everything we do, we are the tool for everything that exists outside of ourselves. And so we're going to talk a little bit about that today. Okay. Just want to know if this looks familiar to anyone. If you ever saw oh no, of course I didn't write it down and the name's going to escape me right now. It was the movie with Tom Hanks, and he's on the island, and he lives out there for 4 years by himself. And I saw this picture, and I wanted to use it. Castaway, thank you. And because I think it's just such a good analogy. It's just this sense of isolation and being out by ourselves. And, you know, what do I do now that things are so different? And I have to kind of start from scratch in a lot of ways. I mean, you know, we have so many things around us, so many things that we can utilize to help us along. So certainly not in this desperate situation, but emotionally, occasionally, it can kind of feel like that for some people, especially if you are living alone. And many people are living alone right now. Okay, so how do we manage this new form of social isolation? And you know, everybody's going through the same thing you are. So how do we deal with that? I wanted to share a story with you, and I am going to read it because I don't want to change any of the language. It was this really fantastic story that was shared by a Holocaust survivor. Okay, so I just want to give you a little warning in advance. This does have a high emotional content, but what I want you to listen for is the resilience in the story of this human being. Okay, and to remind you that the point of this, how strong you really are, and what a human being actually can do when we're faced with it. So here's the story. Aaron Elster, unlike many Holocaust survivors, never spent time in a concentration camp. As Jews were being rounded up in his town's marketplace and sent to Treblinka, his father told him to run. He was 9 years old. And he says, and I managed to crawl into a sewer that ran along the marketplace, the street. And I kept crawling till I felt I was out of sight, and I stood up and I started running again. He made it to the building of an old Polish couple named the Gurskis, who'd been customers at his family's butcher shop. He shows up. She didn't want to take him in. He started crying, and so she led him upstairs. Aaron, how long did you stay in the attic? The interviewer asked. He says, I lived in the attic for close to 2 years, Elster says. 2 years with just one visit a day to bring food and water. What was it like in the attic? He says, oh, there are so many things that I remember. The hunger, the fear, the absolute total loneliness. What do you do all day? What did you do all day? Well, you're sitting there. I used to catch flies out of desperation and tear their wings off so they wouldn't fly away. So I had some company. How did you survive? How did you survive in that attic? He says, I had the ability to daydream. I used to write novels in my head. I was the hero all the time. And we have that ability to either give into our misery and our pain and die, or absorb the physical pain by keeping your mentality, keeping your soul, keeping your mind. So was I bored? Was I scared? Was I in need of somebody to accept me or tell me that I'm okay, that I'm a nice kid? Sure. But that was not part of my life. So that's a powerful story. But this is a human being that experienced something extreme. Of course, nowhere close to what any of us are going through. But what I want you to hear is that when we're faced with the most dire of situations, we have the most greatest ability to bear and endure whatever it is that we may be happening to experience, and that we have the ability built into us to be able to find a way when we need to thrive in any situation. So in a situation where we're now having to look at our self-care, how do we do for ourselves what we can't do? A lot of people, they go swimming, they go to the gym, they go visit friends, they have all kinds of things that they love to do that really help get their mind off things, relieve stress, and now they're isolated and are not able to do that anymore. How do you manage that? And a lot of people are asking themselves this question: what is wrong with me? Okay, so I want to give you an example. There was this fantastic article that was written lately by this woman, and she's a self-professed introvert. She's a writer. She stays at home all the time. Her husband stays at home all the time, so they're always together. She doesn't go out and have a social life. She loves being in. She loves being isolated. It is her life, and she was losing her mind under the quarantine. And because here's the difference. This isn't, when you say to yourself, what's wrong with me? This isn't a big deal. I'm home, I'm working from home, I've got food. And if any of you are on this call, you all still have a job. And so everyone's like, hey, that's great. Why should I be upset? Why should I be stressed out? Why should I be tired all the time? I'm exhausted. We are living in an environment right now, a worldwide environment, where everyone's waiting for the other shoe to drop. Now, some people, if you've ever lived in a violent household, or people that have grown up in war-torn countries, you never know when something's going to happen. And you're always constantly worried in the back of your mind, even if you're having a completely peaceful day and everything's hunky-dory, things going well, there's that worry and that concern in the back of your mind. It's a constant stress on your central nervous system. And so what it does is it can cause an exhaustion. It can cause a mental and psychological exhaustion. So if you are feeling that way on some days, a lot of people say, hey, I'm having some days better than others. Just remember that this isn't you just being lazy. This isn't you having a problem. This is a normal human reaction to a stressful worldwide environment. So there's nothing wrong with you. You're having a natural, normal response to an unusual, unpredictable situation. Okay, so I want to put that out there. Now, we all need some basic good advice. Okay, so what I want you to know is that this presentation isn't going to be your basic good advice, okay, because we all have that, but I do need to start with that. And then what we're going to do is level up, okay? So there is Dr. Janet Zadina is an expert in anxiety and depression and coping skills and those kinds of things. And so I want to share some of her good advice, because I think it's just going to put it on the table and get out of the way. Okay, purpose and meaning in life. We need to have purpose and meaning in life. That's one of the basic human needs for anyone. So if we have some sense of that in our life, I have my job, I have my kids, I'm recognizing them doing that, I'm giving my time and attention to that. That's excellent. Okay, this is really important. Exercise routines. I'm going to talk a little bit more about that. Relationships. So are you paying attention to your relationships? Are you making good choices around that? And we're also going to talk more about that, because that's super important. Are you reaching out to help other people in any way you can? We get outside of ourselves, make connections with other people, and do what we can to help them. That always helps us to really ultimately help ourselves, because it's a reciprocal energy. Creativity and flow. Are you doing things that allow you to express yourself in some way? If you used to have a sewing kit, or if you used to like to whittle wood, or whatever it is that you used to like to do, this is a good time to pull those things out and spend some time doing them. It's a great time to rehash old hobbies or things that you never thought you'd be able to try. Okay, organizing. A lot of people are really organizing their homes and getting things in order, and that's making them feel better. And so that's an opportunity to cleaning, things like that. Planning and projects, and making plans for the future, for when all of this is over. What will you do? A lot of times we don't have enough time to think about it. Maybe you have time to make some plans. What would you like to do for your next vacation? What do you want to do about your retirement? Or all those types of things. Good opportunity to do that. Distractions. Okay, so it's okay to use distractions to get your mind off things. Some people are binging on their favorite shows, or those hobbies, stuff like that. Great things to do. And then allowing yourself to rest and recover. And we kind of talked a little bit about that, recognizing that this is a subconscious psychological stress. Even if things are peaceful in your life, there's still the worldwide stress that's going on, and that is always weighing on our subconscious minds. So allow yourself to take naps and recharge as much as possible. So thank you, Janet, Dr. Janet Zedina, for that. Working out at home. Okay, so research shows that when you're doing exercise, when you're moving your body, you're reducing stress, you're creating, a healthier heart, you're increasing your endorphins, and all of the good brain chemicals that help to reduce depression and anxiety. And so really important to move our bodies right now. They're on TV, they're telling everybody to sit on the couch, and that's good, but can you do some exercises on the couch? And here's some things you could consider doing: jumping jacks, push-ups, leg lifts, crunches, jogging in place, squats. Light weightlifting, dancing. I saw a guy on TV that made his own weights out of buckets. Step exercises. So just consider all the ways you could be moving your body when you get up. Think about a way that you could just increase your heart rate for even just a few minutes. And going outside for a walk, as far as I know, is still okay. Okay. All right. Here's the thing. In order to do any of those things we just talked about, exercising, hobbies, all of those types of stuff, you got to be able to get your rear end off the couch. You have to have the motivation to do it. And so we have to tackle the number one thing that holds us back from being able to take action. And this is the one thing that a lot of people do not talk about when they're giving good advice. They don't say, what do I do if I don't feel like I can do any of it because I just have no motivation? Let's tackle the thing that is destroying your motivation. So deepening our awareness of self-talk. The voice in the head does this to us. It's fretting, it's what-ifing us, it's agonizing over the issue. And so recognizing that the story we're telling ourselves about our condition is really powerfully impacting our reaction, our ability to take action. Okay, so this is what gets affected. Number one thing goes out the window: concentration. Okay, so if your concentration is being affected because you're working from home, it's a totally new environment. Now, I do a lot of working from home normally, but now I'm always working from home, and so this is different. This is different than just doing a day here and there. So this is something to think about. Changing up what's happening for you right now. So let me give you just an example. My son, sometimes he can't sleep at night. And so when this goes on for quite some time, what I do is we change. I change his clothes. We change his physical position in the bed, from this end of the bed to that end of the bed. We get a different blanket. We change the lighting in the room. We fluff his pillows. We drink some tea. We sing a song. Get up, move around, get back into the bed. Don't just sit in the same place. This is sitting there doing the same thing over and over again, wishing for different results is the definition of insanity. You've probably all heard that before. This is the same type of situation. So if you're having trouble concentrating on the task at hand, then allow yourself to get up and do something differently. If you need to go change your clothes, do it. Maybe you woke up in your pajamas and you're still working in your pajamas. You could go take a shower. You could put some clothes on, put on some perfume, your deodorant, brush your hair, do something different. Change, pick up your laptop and move to the couch, move from your couch to the bedroom or whatever. Do something physically different with yourself. Make yourself physically feel different. And that will help you to then come back and try again in terms of what you need to concentrate on. Okay. That's just one little tip. All right. So patience. This is another big thing, because there's a lot of things we need to be patient for. When is this going to be over? Our patience with other people in our lives, friends and family, and or ourselves. Here's something to hear. Patience comes when you're not waiting. When you realize that the only moment you have is now. It's never not now, okay? Just let that soak in for a second. It's never not now. Now, if you don't believe me, you think about the past. Can you touch it? Can you go there? Can you do anything about it? No, you can't. And so this means that the past is now a story that you are telling yourself. Okay? However you want to tell yourself the story. Okay, the future. The future is the same thing. Now, I just want to say, if anybody out there doesn't have their microphones on mute, just to double check that they do have those on mute. So in the future, we're looking at that and going, okay, well, yeah, it's a real thing. Actually, the future is very much like the past. It's a projection, it's a story, it's a hope, it's a fret, it's a fear, it's a concern. Same thing about the past. And so when the future comes, it's now again. So think ahead. Actually think back to, maybe just this morning you were thinking, okay, I'm going to go to this webinar this afternoon at noon, and you're thinking about what you have to do for the day, and this event now was in the future. But it was just something you had planned on doing, something that you were thinking about, but had not yet come to reality. Now it's a reality. Now you are in this webinar. So the past is a story we tell ourselves about what happened. The future is a projection of what may be, but it's always now. And so when we're in our present moment, when we're here right now, then there really is no waiting that's happening. And this is where we can bring patience out. And it's something that you really have to build on. We're going to get a little bit more in depth into this. Okay. All right. So here's another thing that people are struggling with. Being at home all the time and having what is more or less free time or extra stress or angst, anxiety, a lot of the vices and habits that maybe they've done really well with or cope relatively well with because they're busy at work during the day and going out and doing things, have lots of distractions. Some of those demons, so to speak, are coming back to haunt them. I'm started smoking again, I'm eating too much, and I had already lost 50 pounds last year, and now I'm gaining it back, those types of things. And so this is where the things we're going to be talking about today are going to help you with this, because our awareness of what we're doing, we're not acting unconsciously, meaning just, you're going through the motions, we're not really thinking about it, we're taking the cake out of the oven and we're putting it in our mouth, and we may be kind of aware that we're eating too much, but we're not really thinking about it. That is an unconscious behavior, just picking up the cigarette, sticking it in our mouth, starting to smoke. It's unconscious behavior. But when we're really truly present in the moment, then that can help to level us up a bit. Okay. So think about what you can do to reach out for help and support. You may have had a friend that you quit smoking with years ago. It may be a good time to call the quit line, for example. Online, there's tons of support. I mean, I don't care if you're giving up too much record playing or whatever. There's a support group out there for that. I mean, there is something out there for everyone on the internet. And so give yourself permission. If you feel like you're overstepping your bounds with yourself, give yourself permission to reach out and find those different types of supports and people that are struggling with the same thing, so you can help to level up your awareness of what's happening for yourself and what you're doing right now in this moment. And that will help to increase your ability to control the choices that you're making. And all this really comes down to what I call mind yoga, getting in greater control of our behaviors and our thoughts that feed the behaviors that bring us to places that are unhappy, full of stress, anxiety, fret, and worry. Okay. This is like a little mental yoga stress. Something to consider: the primary cause of unhappiness is never the situation, but your thoughts about This is the power of our thoughts. And we may not be able to stop a thought, okay? We may not be able to stop a thought, but how we respond to it can depend on how much space we're able to make between the thought and our own self. We'll talk more about that too. Okay? So suffering, ancient Eastern wisdom that said suffering is wishing things were different than they are. So when we're wishing things are different than they are, what we're doing is we're in a state of resistance. So we're pushing against what is. And this is that, you know, every force has an equal and opposite reaction. So when we're pushing against something, it's always pushing back on us. You know, I wish this virus wasn't going on. I wish this person wasn't behaving this way. I wish I wouldn't eat so much. I wish I, you know, this wishing stuff that's going on versus sitting in a space of just saying, okay, this is what it is in this moment. Nobody knows when all of this stuff's going to end. And so when we are opposing the reality of a situation, our minds are always going wild with questions. You know, why is this happening to me? You know, I'm so unlucky. This is always going on. Stuff always gets in my way. It's never going to change. It's hopeless. Those are stories that we tell ourselves. Is that okay? Yeah, that stuff's going to happen. It's going to go through our minds, but how we deal with those thoughts is going to make the difference whether we're creating a path of suffering that leads to more suffering, or whether we create a path that leads to a little bit more peace and a little bit more reprieve for the reality of a situation we may be living in. So what I want you to do right now is to just prepare yourself to take a breath. I'd like to do a little exercise with you if you are willing. I invite you to do this with me. And it's just a practice exercise to help you in those gaining more control over the reactivity of the mind towards the situations that we find ourselves in. So I invite you to close your eyes, and I'm just going to give you like 3 seconds to just observe your thoughts. Now, in this moment, you may be thinking, what am I doing? Why am I sitting here? Oh, I'm not thinking anything. Oh gosh, what's going on? I'm hungry. I should have ate before I came here. I didn't get a drink of water. Whatever thoughts went through your mind, okay? What a revelation to know that the voice inside my head is not who I am. So who am I then? The one who sees that. So as you're sitting there, observing your thoughts, if you ask yourself this question, who is it that's listening to the thought? Who is it that's aware of the thought? That's you. And so, am I one or am I two? This is a philosophical question. Am I one or am I two? But when you recognize that you are able to observe a thought that's going, so there's all these synapses that are going off in the brain. We have our programming, we have our emotional response, we have all the chemicals going through our body. So there's lots of physical stuff happening up here that's affecting our body. And then there's this piece that recognizes it. Wow. Let that blow your mind for just a second if it has never blown your mind before. Now what happens? Now there's a space between the watcher, the one who observes the thoughts, and the thoughts themselves that are creating the havoc in our lives. So right now there's a space in the middle. And with that space is opportunity to take your power back, to take some control back over the situation. All right. So the voice in your head creates a huge amount of problems that aren't really problems. They're just things that could happen tomorrow or next week. So when we're listening to unreal problems, it's got another name, and that's called worrying. And the worrying is what creates the discomfort. worrying is what creates more problems, because then not only is the situation real, right? You may have a bill to pay that you can't pay. That's a real situation, but worrying about it creates a great amount of discomfort and stress in the body, which is never healthy. We're going to talk about dealing with that more too. Okay. So what do we do with it? What do we do with it? There's 3 logical options for any life condition. 3 logical options. And number 1 is we can try to change the situation. We are not always in a situation where we can change it, right? I mean, we cannot change that the virus is going on in the world right now. You may not be able to change the fact that those bills are due tomorrow. Okay, they have a due date. That's a reality. Maybe the reality also is that you maybe can't go visit grandma right now because you could risk exposing her to something that we don't want to harm her. So that's not something you can really change. So you have to think about, okay, in this situation, what can I do to change the situation? The number 1 thing we can always change is ourselves and our response to the stimulus around us. We have the ability to be able to change that once we raise our awareness to the state that we can make change, because an unconscious mind isn't in a powerful state to make the change. So what this is about is raising your level of consciousness so you can make a rational choice that works for you to change your situation for the better when you are able to, and knowing the difference when you can and cannot change it. Okay, number 2, leave the situation. So you're around somebody that's causing you unhappiness, to walk away from the situation. You're in the grocery store and someone's coughing, you walk the other direction. You leave the situation, but sometimes we can't do that either. And so when neither of these things are very good options or not options at all, then what do? Completely accept the situation. So no, don't misunderstand what accept means. Accept doesn't just mean, oh, everything's okay and it's peachy keen and I love it. No, this isn't about changing your emotional response to something. It's about recognizing that the situation is as it is. And what can I do in this moment to be able to either make change or leave or change my response to it? Okay? One of the things we get a lot of unhappiness from is trying to change the environment, change other people. There creates a great amount of unhappiness. But if you're in the grocery store and somebody's coughing and you turn to walk the other direction, you have said, okay, I accept that this person could potentially be sick. I accept that they could have the COVID virus, except this is a dangerous situation. And I'm choosing now to walk in the other direction. So we're not having a powerful emotional response. How could they do that? Oh my gosh, horrible people, they're risking everybody's life. That may be true. But we could get caught up in the emotion of that and cause ourselves unhappiness, or we could stop, make a change, and move and change the situation for that which we are powerful for. Okay? So this is the acceptance piece. So we accept and then we act. Whatever the present moment contains, accept it as if you had chosen it. And this will miraculously change your whole life. So how do you accept a situation that one may not be acceptable? And how do I say, I chose it? How can I do that if it doesn't feel acceptable? Okay. So I'll get to that too. So acceptance means that for now, this is what this situation, this moment requires me to do. And I do it willingly. Let me give you a personal example. I had a really rough weekend. And, I know I'm struggling. Other people are struggling. I know I'm never alone. I've been in this business for over 20 years, helping people to change and transform and all that kind of stuff. And I'm always right there along with them. And there is no perfect life or perfect way. And anytime you learn something new, it's always just a pointer in the right or wrong direction. Either one, you take what you need from it. But when we're looking at trying to accept a situation, I was getting to a tipping point this weekend, and I thought, okay, what can I do right now? I'm fretting over the future. I'm worried. I'm having regrets over the past, and all of this is coming in on me. And I'm like, what am I going to do? And then I thought, the only thing I have control over right now is this present moment. And right now, what's important for me to do is to be the best person I can in this moment. It doesn't matter what the other people are doing or what's going on financially or anything else. Right now, what I have control over is to make a choice to be kind, to make a choice to be a better me. And then and in that moment, what I did was I took control over the situation by accepting this is as it is. These are all realities. These are all concerns and situations that are very real. And what I have power over to do right now is to pick up this pen, to write down, something, to go to the grocery store, to, go to my refrigerator, whatever it is. I can do this in this moment. And now that I'm aware that I'm making these choices, this is reducing my anxiety and my reactivity to the situation, because now is what I can control for. This is the acceptance. This is really what that means. This is what this situation, this moment requires me to do. And so I do it willingly. And I love this picture because it's got this cow here and, these random sheep, wandered up and, decided to have some lunch. And the cow is just okay with it. I think we can learn a lot from animals, just like cows, like, okay, well, I'll feed them. They're hungry. All right. That's what the situation requires of me. So what if you can't accept the situation? It's a big question a lot of people ask. What if I can't accept? It's not okay that people are dying. It's not okay that we don't have enough PPEs. It is not okay that I can't go see my grandmother or, interact with my kids. I miss my grandchildren. It's not okay that I can't be there with my patients in the way I want to be. There's so many things that feel not okay right now. What if you can't accept? To forgive yourself for not being at peace. Because the moment you completely accept your non-peace can be transmuted into peace. Anything you fully accept will get you there and will take you into peace. And that's the miracle of surrender. So when I gave that example of myself this weekend, what I did was I surrendered my inability to make any great change in the future or the regrets of the past. The only thing I had the ability to do is accept that present moment. And then it did take me into a peace. And the next day I woke up feeling much better. This works when you can apply it. And it's a practice that isn't something you just snap to and do. I mean, people practice these types of things for a lifetime, but I want to give you a tool on this next slide that can help you get into that space when you feel overwhelmed with anything. It doesn't matter what it is, if it's work, if it's personal, doesn't matter, okay? This will help bring you back into the present moment, into that place where you can forgive yourself for not being at peace, where you can do what it is you need to do in that moment and not be reactive towards it. The reactivity is causing us the unhappiness about the situation, because the reactivity is always born of our thoughts that we're having about it, that are telling ourselves the story that makes it worse, versus just accepting that it is as it is. Yes, I have a bill that's late. This is a reality. Okay. This is called the 3 awarenesses. And so again, I would like to invite you to participate in this very brief exercise, probably take about 3 minutes. Okay, so this is called the 3 awarenesses. The first thing I would like you to do is just to take a breath. It doesn't have to be a big fancy yoga breath, just a breath that you are aware of. You're feeling the air come in your body and you feel the air leave your body. So now I invite you to close your eyes. And in the space where you're sitting right now, what I'd like you to do is to acknowledge to yourself and say out loud if you can, just, or under your breath, 3 things you can physically feel. And I want you to really acknowledge it, not just aware. So I want you just to be aware of what you can feel. I want you to identify 3 things, which means the clothing on your body, shoes on your feet, the weight of your body in your chair, your hair tickling your face. Okay, 3 things you can physically feel. And then I'd like you to take another breath and be aware of that breath. Okay. And as you have your eyes closed still, if you're with that, I would like you to identify 3 things you can hear with your ears. This is often more challenging for people. Now for me, I can hear the hum of my computer. I can hear the hum of the pipes in my house. And I can hear my own voice. Now take a breath and breathe it out. Now for the last thing, I'd like you to open your eyes and identify 3 things you can see. Right now I see the camera light in front of me. I see the lights behind me, and I see my water bottle. That's the easy one. Now take a breath. Now I'd like you to acknowledge the physical state of your body after that brief exercise of the 3 awarenesses. This isn't woo-woo mumbo jumbo. This is physiology. This is your physiological response to your mind coming into a point of attention. And when you bring your attention to your breath, what it's doing is it's taking your mind off of the angst or the anxiety or the worries, the fears, the past, the future, the things you can't control for, and it brings it into the present moment. And it makes you more aware at the end of these 3 things what you rationally can do next. Can I change the situation? Can I leave the situation? How can I accept what is in this moment and take right action for myself, for other people? What can I and can I not control for? So I invite you to use this as a tool. 3 things you can physically feel, 3 things you can hear, 3 things you can see, breathing in between it. You can do this anywhere, anytime, any day, except for the closing your eye part when you're driving down the road. This little tiny tool right here could radically change your life in terms of your ability to control your activity to the things that cause you unhappiness in your life. It could radically change the environment that you're living in right now, even though nothing changes, because you now have changed your ability to respond to the way you react to what is. So here's something to consider. We're going to get a little bit into relationships because this is a really important thing. If you're stuck at home with people, or if you're separated from people that you want to be close to and you're not, or this is a situation as it is, when we complain, we make ourselves a victim. When we complain, we make ourselves a victim. So Jean-Paul Sartre was a very famous philosopher, and he said very famously, hell is other people. Okay, so this means that we're reacting to other people in our lives, then trying to control for them. A lot of times we can create a lot of unhappiness for ourselves. Okay, and so then when we start complaining about things and complaining about the situation, what it is, we're giving away our power in that moment to make change. And when we give away our power, we feel victimized, then that causes us unhappy, that causes anxiety, stress, depression, and it makes things worse. Whatever the situation is, it can make things worse rather than taking control for it. And so what can we do with that? What can we do with other people in our lives when we can't control for them? Okay, so let's talk about some top tips for keeping the peace in our relationships. Okay, so for those of you that are coupled, or you're at home with your children, this is about relationships. You may be having the time of your life, and this is fantastic for you, and that's great. And then, in which case, you can go home already. But if there's been any struggle, or there could potentially be struggle in the future, continue to listen, because there may be some tools and tips in here for you that you can utilize in your relationships, regardless of what they are. So just to think about things you can store up for later. So number 1, withhold criticism. So awareness of what we've been talking about, awareness. Okay, so awareness of how we say something really can make a huge difference. And trying to say things in different ways can also make a difference in how the other person's responding to us. So John Gottman, who's one of the world's foremost researchers on what builds or kills a relationship, culturally, we're taught to be critical. Okay, we scan our environment for flaws and errors. We assign blame. And we need to exercise critical thinking, right? So this is something that's common. But criticism, when it's directed at your partner or your loved one, can strain that relationship over time. And so, for example, some of the hallmarks of criticism are phrases like, you always do this, or you never do that. They're comments that are generalized, and they're basically kind of a sweeping attack on your loved one's character, rather than pinpointing a specific behavior that was not useful. Okay, so for example, you always leave dirty dishes in the sink, or you never tell me when you're on a business call. That is so inconsiderate. So that's like, it's a criticism. The statements like these, what they're doing is they're priming your loved one to be defensive. Their first response might be to come up with a defensive statement, such as, you know, when they didn't leave, well, I didn't do it last week, or I didn't do it yesterday, or, you know, I don't have to tell you I'm on a call, I'm busy, or I'll get to them later. Okay, there's all kinds of things like, I didn't think you cared. But if we can talk to them in a different way, if we can show up and express ourselves in ways that are more useful, that can make a big difference. So at that point, you're really in a values battle. Okay, so there's a better alternative to criticism, and it's called a soft startup. So for example, you know, the garbage needs to be taken out the other day. And I could say to my son, you know, you've been sitting on the couch all day, being a lazy turd, and, you know, it's time to take the garbage out. Okay, so now I've just started out the conversation with the criticism. And what I do is inciting bad feelings. And then this is what you need to go do, versus saying in a different way, the garbage truck is coming in about 15 minutes, and I would love it if you jump up and put your shoes on and take that garbage out real quick. And then you can do things like add humor to it. You know, thank you for taking one for the team, or you know, if somebody's got to go to the grocery store for the family, thank you for bearing the elements and keeping us all safe. And there's all kinds of things that you can throw in, a compliment or a some humor to make it a softer startup. And every time we start a conversation with you always or you never, you automatically red flag you're being critical. And that doesn't set somebody up to respond to you better. So this is about recognizing what you can do to change yourself to be a better person in this moment. So be mindful of feelings of contempt and counter those with gratitude. So something I like to advise people to do is something I call drop and give me 10. So when somebody's irritating you and getting on your last nerve, one thing you can do is to stop and be grateful for the things that you do love about them. And sometimes you have to physically make yourself write them down. And somebody jokes that, well, I don't think I can do 10, but I might be able to do 3. So this is a situation of good enough's good enough, right? Better's better. So if you can only do 3, do 3. But to keep your focus on those positive things about that person and write them down if you have to. This is about you making you better. And praise unconditionally and generously. This is going to help remind you why you love them, and it's also going to help them to respond to you better. Because when people feel loved and that you are making an effort and showing up, they're much more likely to respond to you in a way that makes you want to respond back. Okay, but this is going back to those things where what can I control for? Okay, so turning towards their gestures to connect. This is another thing that's really important. When we're busy, when we're stressed, it can be easy for us to be very focused on what we're doing. But stonewalling or lack of attention can be hurtful and breed contempt within the relationship. So, you know, when you're walking by your partner, to reach out and touch them on the shoulder, just let them know you acknowledge their presence. To make a kind of comment to them, to your child, I like how well you're working right now, versus pointing out when they're not working well. Point out when they are working well, when they catch them doing something good and comment on it. Okay? And using humor and doing those, you know, touch your kid on the head when you walk by, you ruffle their hair, let them know that you love them. These things are going to help generate good feelings in them. They're going to most likely be responding more positively to you. And it doesn't happen in an instant. Sometimes it can, but this is a practice for you to show up for yourself during this time of quarantine and use it to be able to make yourself a better person. So taking time outs frequently and giving each other space. So finding ways to occupy your own time and to make yourself happy, because this other person, your child, your partner, they're not going to be able to make you happy and serve all of your social needs right now. They just can't, and you can't do that for them either. So this is where you have to show up for yourself, okay? Also, being the first to apologize. So it says more about you than it does about the other person when you can do that. And so taking that opportunity right now to practice being your best self. So there was a really great saying that I loved that was a great teacher named Ram Dass. He said, if you think you're enlightened, go spend a week with your parents, or go spend a week with, you know, your ex or whatever. I mean, whoever that person would be triggering you. So this, again, going back to, this is all about being in control of ourselves, being in control of our interactivity, to the environment, to our jobs, to our friends and family. And how do we do that? How do we show up and keep doing that? By raising our awareness of what we're saying, feeling, doing. What can we control for? What can we not control for? How can we affect this situation more effectively? So when people are getting on our last nerve, I love this. My fiance was, he's a total ham, but he comes up to me and says, would you please stop blinking? And I was like, why? He's like, because it's irritating me. When you're living in close quarters with people, it could get this bad. Now, it's not like this for everyone, but for those of you that may be experiencing that straw in the camel's back irritation with the people around you, you know that you're having a normal reaction, so it's all right. Being mindful of those feelings that come up for you, and just being able to address them in the time, move forward with humor and all that, it can be very helpful. Okay. Let's see, how much time do we have left here? Okay, so there is this really fantastic Chinese proverb that I would like you to spend some time thinking about. I love the ancient wisdoms because they kind of are eternally true, and they always have something that can help us in our present lives, in our present moment. So here's the story. There's a Chinese farmer and he has a stallion, and one day the stallion runs away. And the village people come to him and say, oh, that's such bad luck. And the farmer shrugs and he says, maybe. So a few days later, the stallion returns with 3 mares, and the village people come to him and they say, oh, that's such good luck. And the farmer shrugs and says, maybe. The next week, the farmer's son breaks his leg taming the wild mares. The village comes to him and says, oh, that's such bad luck. And the farmer shrugs and says, maybe. A month later, the Chinese army comes and demands all the young men of soldier age. The farmer's son does not have to go because of his broken leg, and the village people come to him and say, oh, such good luck. And the farmer shrugs and says, maybe. So when we're having catastrophic thinking about things that this will never get better, I'll never get back to work, these things will always be bad, those kinds of things, we don't know. So this is what the ancient wisdoms always teach us. We don't know what's coming next. So how do we weather the ups and downs? And a lot of these skills that we've talked about just briefly today, these are lifetimes of studies and practices, but just if you walk away today with even one useful thing that you got out of this presentation, then it will be a useful time well spent. Because there's not, anytime we learn something new or we hear a big presentation, usually we're going to walk away with 1, maybe 2 little tidbits. And if you walk away from any presentation with something like that, then that's great, because then you have the opportunity to utilize that and possibly make that work for you in your life and make your life that much better. And really, that's what we're all doing in healthcare. We're all working to make everybody else's lives better. And so if we can do that for ourselves, we show up for ourselves and learn about our own reactivity and learn about how to function better within the environment that we find ourselves in, then we can show up better for our patients. We can show up better for our families. We can show up better for all the relationships that we have, both personal and professional. And I always love to wrap up with Dr. Rita Pitka-Blumenstein, who is a very precious friend and mentor to me. She's a tribal doctor and Revered Alaska Native Elder. and member of the International Council of 13 Indigenous Grandmothers. And she says, even when it's not okay, it's still okay. And if you walk away with nothing else today, I hope you walk away with those words of hers in your mind, because this is that ancient wisdom of the ancient Chinese proverb of the mindfulness and bringing yourself back into the present moment. And what can we do right now? That life will continue on, and we have control over ourselves right now, our own reactivity. And if you find yourself in a more concerning situation, know that all of our medical providers are still out there helping us. And for those of you that might have just none of these skills are working and there's other stuff going on, recognize there's other health problems that could potentially be going on. So make sure you're taking good care of yourself and still getting your own healthcare needs met as you're meeting other people's healthcare needs. Okay. So I'm going to go ahead and give this back. We do have another poll. I want to thank you so much for your time and attention. And again, I hope there's something useful for you in this. And I am going to stop showing my screen.
Thank you so much, Bella. That was excellent.
Okay.
I know that I learned some, I felt more empowered after that to take control of what's going on in my life and my experiences. So I'm going to launch another poll. We'd love to get your opinion on your experience today. If you take a moment to fill that out, we'd appreciate it.